All right. Welcome to our webinar today. This is our fifth and final webinar in our Taking Business to School series, and we are thankful to have representatives from Vancouver Public Schools and TechSmart with us this afternoon to talk about their successful business and education partnerships. Our Taking Business to School series is very generously sponsored by Zello, and we would like to thank Zello for their partnership with ACTE this year. I wanted to let you know that as of today, all 5 of our publications in the series are available, as well as the 4 corresponding webinars that happened prior to this one. We also have a Taking Business to School toolkit that we hope you'll explore, available on the linked page that you can see displayed on your screen. This summer, we will also be launching a series of virtual industry tours. There will be 3 of those, which will also highlight additional successful business and education partnerships in fields like biosciences and architectural woodwork. I also wanted to let you know that we do have a few upcoming webinars rounding out this month of June. We hope that you might be able to join us for another one of these. On June 21st, we will have a webinar focusing on global competence as a lens to create inclusive learning environments. On June 27th, our College and Career Division will have another one of its Recess webinars, which Recess stands for Relax, Exchange, Connect, Explore, Share, Sit, and Listen. And then finally, on June 29th, we're going to have the first of a series of 3 webinars focused on academic esports, which is brought to you in partnership with Mastery Coding. And you can find information on all of these webinars available at the link on the screen. For those of you who may not know a little bit about ACTE, we are the largest national education association dedicated to the advancement of education that prepares youth and adults for successful careers. Our members represent lots of facets of career and technical education. And right now we're over 21,000 members strong. We have members in the secondary and post-secondary settings. We have teachers, administrators, coordinators, and we hope that if you're not yet a member, you might consider joining us. And more information can be found on our membership page. And my last little blurb before we get to introducing our wonderful panelists and moderator today. We do again want to thank Zello for their partnership, and also a thank you to RealityWorks for helping to promote our webinars, both to their larger audience. So thank you to RealityWorks for your help. All right, and now to the most important part, the introduction of our panelists and moderator for today. I have the pleasure to introduce our moderator, Rochelle Downey. Rochelle is the Engineering and Technology Education Division Vice President for ACTE. She's a practicing classroom teacher who teaches civil engineering and architecture, engineering design and development, and calculus for Tulsa Tech in Oklahoma. Encouraging students to stay curious and engage their brains in problem solving is the main focus of her classroom, which leads her to engage in new and innovative teaching practices. I'm happy to pass things over to Rochelle, who will introduce you to our panelists for today. Thanks, Rochelle.
Thank you, Laura. Joining us today, we have Chelsea Byers, Director of Teacher Success for TechSmart. Chelsea is the Chief Operating Officer of TechSmart, which partners with K-12 schools and districts to prepare students to compete for software development jobs directly from high school. She has a background as a K-12 teacher and in developing and growing adult coding boot camps. Because once a teacher, always a teacher, she continues to actively teach and tutor youth in her spare time. We also have Tracy Charmin as the Career Connected Learning Coordinator for Vancouver Public Schools. She is a CPA and was a journalist. This role was created 5 years ago to increase student and community work-based learning connections to include creating a sustainable and scalable high school internship program, the DREAM. And finally, we have Rosalind Johnson, who works at TechSmart, training teachers on how to teach code, ensuring they are able to understand the platform and provide support to them during the school year. She has also worked on updating the internship program to be better for remote work, diverse learners, and allows for more insight into the tech industry. The biggest goal for Rosalind is to help change the lives of students, which in turn will change the future of the tech industry. So welcome, Chelsea, Tracy, and Rosalind. So first of all, my first question for you is, how did Vancouver Public Schools and TechSmart collaborate successfully to develop this partnership?
This was one of those things where Vancouver Public Schools received a grant for computer programming, and we purchased TechSmart's curriculum. So TechSmart was teaching our teachers how to teach. This isn't the normal way that an internship comes about. Usually it's a lot of ground pounding and developing relationships. But once in a while you get a dream partner like this that has the idea and the internship that they want to do already planned out, and you're just jumping on board to ride the train. So we have a few partners like this in Vancouver, and it's awesome to have TechSmart with us.
Any Rosalind or Chelsea, have anything to add?
Sure. Well, Tracy's been a pleasure to work with. And one of the things that I think has really helped kick off our partnership is that Tracy and Vancouver Public Schools had the same commitment to a CTE pathway that's really equitable. And so really kind of focusing on industry-ready programming skills as a pathways to job partner, and also just trying to make sure that as many kids take computer science as they can. So it's not sort of an elite thing. And that made us feel like we were going to be able to meet the goals of our internship program, which was to make jobs in tech accessible to students. So in that way, they were a really great, that was a really great keystone part of our partnership. We both had the same vision on who can be a programmer, and the answer is almost anybody that has the drive and determination, and that was really, really great.
Yeah, and what we had found before is that the top 10% of the students were the ones doing the internships because they were the ones that were out there looking for them. So we tried to switch the model to where we're honoring all choices, employ, enlist, or enroll, so that we can find the students and show them the opportunities that are available, and they're not all mutually exclusive. So you can go to work and have your work company pay for your degree, or you can join the military and get funds for college. You can go straight to work. So it's been a joy to help students find their different pathway.
I love that. I love that you guys, that both entities in the partnership are focused on equity. That's a really big, important part of that. We're not just making sure that the go-getters are getting the opportunity, that those people that might be unsure of where to go and what to look, you're also making a guided effort to get the information to them as well. So can you tell me, how do the programs and internships assist students with career growth and networking opportunities?
Yeah, this is definitely something where the program itself, we want students to be working with code. And code itself, when you're learning it, there's a lot of problem solving that goes into it. So that involves procedural thinking. How do I break down this big problem into some smaller ones that I can actually manage to deal with? And along with that, there's a lot of collaboration that happens. And with collaboration, I always believe that there's some creativity that goes on there. What can I do and what can you do well? And that is something that I think every teacher wants to have happen in their classroom, and especially everyone in the real world when they're working in their job wants to have happen. You don't just want everyone to stay in their own lane and not talk to each other. So this, I think, lines itself up with my other big point, is a valuable mindset that you learn when you're coding. When you're coding, you're not only going to learn about how everyone is going to have their strengths and weaknesses and different points, but you can also rely on different people. You're not alone. And it's okay if you need a little extra practice. That's totally fine if you do. Another thing that I definitely learned while coding, and I think that it's something a lot of people come across, is that errors are solvable. It's something you're going to run into at some point when you are coding, that an error pops up. And for me, I treat it as just like spell check at this point. But it's something that your mindset eventually gets used to. Okay, there's a small problem. I don't have to break down. It's fine. I know how to deal with this. And eventually you learn that that can be applied to more than just your coding. It can be applied to anything that you're dealing with, which is really great for students and also for internships. So when someone joins our internship, I think it's really great that they learn not only those basics from coding, but also they learn how to speak with other adults, other peers, and they learn how to share their experiences and what they know with people who have been in the industry for 20 years and don't find that intimidating, because they definitely work with people who are on my team who code for a living. So that can be intimidating for someone who has only been coding for a year or two. They also learn about responsibilities and forming relationships with their mentors and connecting with their peers, which I'll definitely talk about a little bit more later on, because I know you're going to have some more questions that bring those up.
I wanted to add to that,
Sure, go ahead.
Rosalind, in that when you bring in students out to work sites, they're offering a fresh perspective that sometimes the work sites don't see because they've been doing things a certain way for so long. And so getting a fresh pair of eyes can be really, really helpful to work sites. And it also creates more invigorating meetings and brings the opportunity to train your employees on things that they should know and maybe don't know. And so if you have a student sitting in a safety meeting or you're talking about email etiquette, it's a great way to bring the whole staff on board and really change practices and get better at what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy, for sharing that.
I can add one
Chelsea?
last thing, Rochelle, if there's time. I'll be real brief. But yeah, one thing that I really love seeing kind of along the lines of what Rosalind said is the evolution of interns from thinking in sort of like I have school, I'm going to do assignments, I can do them or I can't do them, to hey, interns, the most important thing is actually that you communicate, right? Or if you don't know how to do something, you feel like you can direct message an employee on staff. And that's really intimidating for them at the beginning, but it's really a joy to kind of see them shift that mindset from, we're not expecting perfection, we're expecting folks to be reliable and ask for help, right, and collaborate. And that really is kind of a mindset shift that we see, and that frankly for me is really fun to see the more weeks they're with us.
Yes, I agree, Chelsea. That was one of the things that I pulled out from Rosalind's description. Being an engineering and technology teacher, that's something that I try to do, is encourage them to be curious and ask questions. And we really work, I've really done a lot of study between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, and trying to change them from the fixed mindset to growth, where they ask questions. It's okay to not know. It's not okay to not ask. And so I really like that we're working towards that. And it's a very valuable career skill in the workplace, whether you're an intern and a student or whether you're a coder for 20 years. It's just as valuable for those veterans to be willing to ask, I got this problem and I don't know how to solve it. And even though I've done this for 20 years, I can ask someone and get help. And really like the analogy, Rosalind, of creating your errors as like spell check. I really like that. I may be using that in my engineering class. How does Vancouver Public Schools help support students to get ahead before they graduate high school?
Well, as far as the internship program goes, we tried a onesie-twosie placement and realized that that wasn't successful, that our students needed more training. They needed to build relationships prior to going out. So we have an internship cohort now, and they all start at the same time, and they're getting work readiness training before they go out. And part of that work readiness training that we utilize is Zello. And we love the career and college opportunities that Zello has. All of our high school and beyond plans are in Zello. So we know that email boxes are full. So we're sending students to Zello. You want to find out what's happening about an internship, a paid job, what kind of support you can get for math, go to Zello, because we list all our opportunities on there. So I think that that's gaining some traction. We also, aside from Zello, we have Future Ready Parent Workshops, because it's so important to bring in the parents into the loop. We know that a student may not want to do an internship because it's for credit, but we know that that credit articulates to college. And if mom and dad knew they were saving $400, they'd really, encourage that student to follow through. So we know that bringing parents into the fold is super important. And we do our college and career fairs at our buildings, mock interviews. We're just trying to get as much community partnership involved in our schools as possible.
Awesome, that sounds fantastic. Go ahead, Rosalind, please add.
I will also add that it was really great working with this last round of interns. A lot of them were from, Vancouver. And one of the things that we have going on this summer as TechSmart is that we have a little bit of summer training that's going on at UW. And a lot of the interns were really excited when they heard that this was an opportunity for them to get paid to teach code to somebody else. So a lot of them were like, ooh, yes, sign me up for that. So that's just goes to show that it's a great opportunity for not only that internship to open up some new ideas to them, but also open doors for some more experience and to look good on a college resume if they decide to go that route. And if not, they get some more experience on their resume if they decide to go get a job.
Absolutely. How can other industry leaders who view a gap in recruitment and enrollment replicate what you have done related to their own industry needs?
Yeah, I can start, and then I'm happy to pass the baton, of course. So from our perspective here at TechSmart, we really want to work with CTE programs that are teaching industry relevant skills. And since our focus is computer science and specifically programming, we are really interested in working with schools and partners where coding is accessible to all students, like I mentioned. And then there are some things that are that we're not against, but just aren't important to us. So we're not looking for maybe the student that's taken the most AP classes or necessarily any AP classes of computer science, right? We're looking for students who are curious, who will really be benefited from the opportunity, right? Maybe haven't had an internship before, are excited about the tech industry. And if they've learned some sort of like some more hands-on programming skills, that's always exciting to us too. So that's kind of our starting place is in looking for partners. A few other things I think that other companies could think about. I would put out there, and hopefully this isn't too controversial, but if you're not open to interns or apprenticeship programs or hiring folks without a college degree, my personal perspective is you're not really interested in having a diverse workforce. Because if we're just putting so many barriers to hiring, we're never going to reach a diverse pool of workers. We're just going to replicate the same problems that we've had before. And so I think that's a starting point for us in thinking about, this is our pre-apprenticeship program. We are designing this as sort of a first step towards having a registered apprenticeship program. We actually are registered in the state of Colorado, which is super exciting. I think we're the first two-year software developer apprenticeship registered with the Department of Labor. And all that's just to say, developing those programs is not as hard as employers think. There's a lot of support from the DOL. There's a lot of support from the state. And it's such a great way having those alternative pathways. We hire from coding boot camps as well, adult career changers, that's an alternative pathway. So really having those as part of your primary recruiting portals, I think shapes the way you work with interns at the K-12 and high school level. A few other quick things. I think Rosalind, I call her like our chief of interns. I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out the right title for you, Roz. She's really championed this program recently, but I think some of the things she's done really well, be clear about the program time commitment and length. So for our internship program, we tried to have clearly defined tasks. We had some synchronous time, some asynchronous time, just being really explicit about the expectations, defining a learning path, having a program manager. So they always knew they could go to Roz if she needed something, right? She would help them with anything needed. And then the last one that I think maybe employers don't think about as often is give mentors explicit directions. So don't assume that someone maybe knows how to mentor a high school student or intern. And that can be as simple as like, if they have 6 check-ins, give them a sample agenda for 6 check-ins with a high school student, just to really help their comfort level. And we found that when we've done that or sort of coached folks on what to expect in those one-on-one meetings, they've been able to really shine as mentors. And it's been, I underestimated how intimidating it was for some employees to be mentors, although they were really excited. So it was nice to kind of remove that sense of nerves for sure.
That is so true, Chelsea. Some of our worksite partners get excited and I tell them start small. Don't, because it's exciting to take on interns sometimes and they're thinking big and grand, and it's like, just keep it simple as possible. I like to encourage worksites to reuse things that they've done and to incorporate students into real life projects. So if you have Excel files to clean up, if you have a project, our architecture partner, LSW, they have the students always working on pieces of their big projects, which really empowers students. And then just creating the systems. So, and being consistent in the times that they're meeting is super important.
I have to agree with everything that has been said. The best things that I have found for interns is that they love being part of what is actually happening at the company. And so even if you give them a diverse array to choose from, they'll find something that they're drawn to. And for instance, there were a lot of people who were very interested in more design aspects. So we were like, absolutely. We love having posters designed for teachers. So by all means, make some posters for teachers and we can have the teachers print those out. So find ways that work for your intern and for you. It's something that you can either come up with on your own, or you can talk around to other departments depending on how you're going to run this. And just a little side note, yes, absolutely. Hiring people who don't have a college degree is great. I graduated from a boot camp and I speak six different coding languages. So I am a little biased there, but I think it's a great, way to tap into a whole group of people who are very dedicated and maybe just don't have the resources to go to college or the time.
Absolutely. And I believe it's another key piece in your commitment to providing equity for all learners. That really shows your commitment to making sure that if people are interested in coding and want to find a way, if they can get connected with you, you're willing to work with them where they are. So what a fantastic piece. Is there a roadmap for schools or industry leaders and educators to form similar partnerships and to ensure that the partnerships are successful and sustainable?
I'm sure there's
Go ahead, Rosalind.
roadmap that Tracy and Chelsea can share a little bit more on, but I really believe that the best first step is to connect and communicate. Because even if you don't want to follow the exact steps that we have, it's great to realize what the goals are and how you have similarities in what you want to have happen. There's always going to be some tasks that a company needs to have happen, and maybe you don't want to have somebody who's being paid X amount of dollars to do that. Well, an intern can do those tasks. They can go over those files and make sure they're all formatted correctly. They can go ahead and create posters. There's a whole bunch of things that interns are capable of doing and are happy to get the experience of that industry. And it's really great for interns to get that chance. You just need to communicate with the school that you want to actually have come in and help you.
Yeah, we've had some interns that were, oh, sorry, Tracy. I'll pass the baton to you next. Okay. We've had some interns that were just like delighted to be making coding instruction posters. We've had some that love to make, we had some interns make an animated video about tips for new programmers. And they were two young women of color, and they featured themselves in like avatars, and it was just really, really great for them to share, like, it's okay if you might have some imposter syndrome, and, build some skills in adjacent areas. And so when we think about our apprenticeships and who we'll hire into our apprenticeship program post high school, there are certain CTE skills that we're looking for. We'd like a certain number of years of Python, we'd like some modern web development skills. And so that's part of who we look for in the hiring a paid apprentice for multiple years post high school. But in this sort of our pre-apprenticeship phase, we're really looking to see that students are interested, comfortable, and that they're just people we want to work with. And we want to work with mostly everybody, but it's just, you can tell when a young person is excited about your company and what you're doing. And so it's a source of that. And I think, yeah, that making sure again that you partner with a district or program that matches your values, I think is probably the most important thing. I keep saying it over and over, so that's probably the last time I'll say it, but it really is such a good basis for starting a strong relationship, because from there, you know, if your program develops on the internship and apprenticeship side, you can come back to the district and say, we know we're not the only employer, but we're an employer and we're looking for these skills. And can we help support making sure that students are ready post-graduation?
And what we found, something that was very successful with our internship cohort, is we're doing a kickoff. And so we invite interns, potential interns, their families, and our work sites that are participating. And we have a celebration for the class that's wrapping up. And we have dinner together, and we recruit new work sites, because most parents have jobs, or they know of an uncle that does this and, you know, needs help. So it's a great way to broaden your pool of candidates for work sites, because that's what you really need. You need the planets to align, you need the students, and you also need the work sites. We're starting with 50 students each cohort, and we do get down to 25. And so the second, before they start, so we recruit 50 students. We have them do the work readiness training and skills assessment in Zello. And then we do some work readiness training, and we have local companies sponsor lunch or dinner, however we're going to work it. And after the training, we invite the work sites. They all have dinner together. They can Zoom in if they want. But then immediately after that, we're doing interviews. And so they're kind of mock interviews, and they're kind of not, because the work sites get to see all the awesome talent all in one place. And the students get to maybe interview with someone that they hadn't thought about before. And then we're printing out those skills assessments from Zello, so that the work site's getting ideas about what the students are interested in too. And, oh, they can do this, or, you know, this is something that's interesting. So I just think that's like one of the best things that we've kind of cracked the code on this year, is bringing in those work sites earlier and doing those interviews. And we tell students that, you know, you're not losing anything by participating and not being selected. You'll get rolled over to the next cohort, or we'll try and find a placement for you. It's a great experience. We have a grant from US Bank where we give kids gift cards to participate. So that's invaluable. So we're just really grateful for our community support.
It sounds amazing how you've been able to use Zello and their work readiness skills assessment to help make sure that you can define what students are interested in and what their abilities are. And then what I'm also hearing TechSmart to say is an important part of the roadmap or starting the partnership is the company really stopping and thinking and defining what skills do we need, what do we want to do with these students, so that they can match those and align those. So it sounds like that's the key, finding a way to assess skills and then making sure your company or your partner knows what they're looking for.
And as a school district, you don't want to keep asking our work sites to come to this event, come to that event. So we try and keep it together and not tax our work sites, so that we're doing multiple things at the same time.
Absolutely. And I hope that, and as I know, as being a vice president for a CTE career, CTE has so many skills available. So it really doesn't matter what industry you're in. Today, we're focusing on coding and programming, but whatever industry you're in, CTE has the skills to offer. So getting the word out to industry partners that look for your CTE programs is a great place to start and connect to get what you need.
The other
Rochelle,
thing, Rochelle,
sorry, you first this time, Tracy.
I keep going, Chelsea. But the other thing that we love about Zello is that we're incorporating the careers into our local work sites. So if a kid's interested in coding, they look up coding, and if they're reading about it, they'll see what local companies are here, and they see TechSmart, and then they can click on let's go to that company. And in that company profile, we're now putting a link to the opportunities page in every company's profile, so that students can loop around and see what opportunities are available. So it's a great way for students to see how many opportunities there are right here in their backyard.
Now, one thing I was going to add that you made me think of, Rochelle, when you were talking was, I think for a lot of companies and for a lot of school districts, computer science is kind of new to being part of the universe of CTE programs. The coding bootcamp industry has been around for a while. People have come out of the military into tech jobs for a while, but thinking about this as like a real CTE pathway, I think is fairly new. And we find that with a lot of our district partners, as well as companies we work with. In some ways, programming fits really beautifully into a CTE pathway because hiring for programmers is so skills-based, right? At the end of the day, you're not hired based on where you graduated or what it is. It's you're passing an engineering test in the interview, right? You're doing pair programming. So that's just been really, really fun to work with Vancouver as they're thinking about this as part of their universe of CTE programs. And it's been really interesting, like when we were getting registered as an apprenticeship provider, it was like us and then like welding and medical assisting and, nursing, and all those programs are great. And it's just so wonderful to see programming start to be part of that universe. And I'm, excited to see it be more and more accessible to students as a CTE pathway, because I think it just lends itself to a CTE, being the end of a CTE pathway so well.
Yes, I think so. How does each program ensure that all students are prepared for the workforce and to meet industry needs? And Tracy, I think for you, we've kind of touched on this with the Zello and how everything is incorporated in there. Chelsea and Rosalind, do you have some insight for us on maybe your pre-apprenticeship planning?
Yeah, I can definitely go into depth about the pre-apprenticeship program. So there's a lot beyond coding for us. As I mentioned earlier, we have what is called a Monday meeting. It's on Monday, so it's a Monday meeting. And there's a lot that we do there, but it's always going to be on a Monday. We can either have somebody come in and talk about the industry. It can be me talking about a subject on the tech industry, or it can be us doing a code together so that we can get some more experience with code. There's also the workflow that is really important for the interns to get used to. So how are they actually going to be working throughout the week? And part of that is that we have a Trello board with all of the possible projects for them so that they can choose what seems appropriate for them. We always are aware that life happens. And so if they have something come up, it's finals week. I know there was a girl who her mom had a baby. So she just was like, hey, I'm not going to be able to be around for a little while. There's a new baby in my house and I just kind of got to help out. So those are things that they need to communicate to us. And then they're able to, when they're coming back, be able to choose jobs that are appropriate for where they're at. They also choose their own work hours when they're coming back from school, if that's a good time for them, or if they're going to do everything on the weekend. But we do make them responsible for, 5 hours a week. And so with our constraints of like, okay, you have to do this and you have to do this, they have flexibility within those. And this really comes back to what we were talking about earlier about being able to communicate well with us and making sure that we're never going to be like, oh, it's finals week. No, you have to do these tasks. That's never going to happen. And we just want to make sure that they understand that that's really how a good job should be. And this is practice for that. That's what an internship should be, is them getting to understand what a job is like. And what comes along with that is some professionalism. Let us know when you're sick. Let us know if you're available for a meeting or if you're going to not be there for that Monday meeting so that I don't worry about you, and so on. It's those things that really make a difference for them getting ready for whatever industry they choose to go into. It doesn't have to be tech necessarily.
Chelsea, anything to add?
I would just say I agree with all of that. I think that surprisingly, one of the most important skills our interns learn is don't ghost or hide. So, either sometimes they're embarrassed, right? Like, oh, I can't make it. I'm going to disappoint somebody. And that's like, it makes me realize what an important professional skill that is. And so seeing them develop that and, be able to manage their time and communicate is really awesome. I think Roz described it really well.
And I think that's one of the benefits, that one of the advantages why educators are so interested in connecting with business and partnership. We really are trying to teach that in our classrooms, but it's just school. It doesn't matter. It's just the teacher. Matt, there's 120 of us in her class. What does she care if I'm not there? But when we get to the business side and that partnership, they really get to learn that valuable skill and they take it more seriously. It's kind of like the parent-child relationship. When mom tells you to do it, not going to do it. But when you go to your friend's house and their mom tells you, you really should do this, then maybe they listen and like, oh, well, so-and-so told me, so I'm going to do that. And I'm thinking, isn't that what I said? So kind of the same thing. So we appreciate the business taking, helping with that role, with the connect and communicate. And it really is about the soft skills and the professionalism and the career skills, not necessarily the technical skills, because we know CTE is doing a great job of developing that, but just the opportunity to practice those skills, those communication skills that we're trying to instill in the classroom is very valuable in this type of program. So last question here. Oh, sorry. Rosalind, something to add?
I think it also helps when instead of turning in an assignment, like you're going to miss a lecture or like something that you're going to get the worksheet later, like, does it really matter? But if you're going to be missing something that you're not necessarily going to be able to make up, which is something that happens in the workplace, that's something that really starts to change the mindset for interns as well. Like maybe their meeting can be recorded nowadays that we use Zoom, but that wasn't always the case. So that's something that can really help change the perspective of, oh, I'm not going to be kind of like handheld through this process as much. Just wanted to kind of confirm on what you said.
Yes, excellent point, Rosalind. So we've kind of touched on this, but last question, how was the community able to support the internship and partnership? And Tracy, I'll let you go back to this. You had said some grants and some community support, and then we'll let Chelsea and Rosalind give their take.
All CTE pathways have to have advisory committees, and you want those to be robust, and you want to ask, go to your advisory committee with specific asks. We have a kid, he has a job at a manufacturing company, he needs steel-toed shoes. Who wants to donate? Who can, put up their conference room so that we can have a training session there? They're super important on donating posters or programs, paper, their graphic design ideas. So we really try and rely on our community for donations, and then empower our advisory committees to take part in the internship program in any way that they can.
One thing that was really cool that Vancouver did, they were able to sponsor a paid internship and externship. And I know those grants aren't always available, but from the industry perspective, we try to host 8 interns a semester, and we're a 30-person company. So that's quite a lot, intern to staff ratio. And we would love to pay them all for every project, but we would have to limit the size of our program to do that, right? So anytime on the, from the help of the community, like kids just getting an Amazon gift card for something that they're doing, even if it's unpaid at the beginning, it's really helpful. Anything that you can do to not necessarily put it on the company, who again, we would love to have hundreds of paid interns, right? But no one has infinite resources. So where in times where the district can work with the community to provide stipends or sponsorship or swag or like recognition and appreciation, we try to do little surprise and delights for them too. But that was a really wonderful thing to be able to know that our intern and the teacher extern that was working with us were getting paid for their time. And that was from a grant that Vancouver had. So that's just one thing to think about as you work with industry partners. More often than not, I hear pretty much everyone say like all interns should be paid, because that's how we also ensure equity, right? Because then the opportunity cost for kids isn't do an unpaid internship or work at Subway. But not all companies have the resources to do that, even if they would want to. And so helping bridge that gap, I think, is a really wonderful thing where that's possible.
And Chelsea, we use our Perkins funds to pay for our teacher summer externship program, which is a great way to have our teachers go out there and build relationships with TechSmart. And then the company doesn't feel like we're just asking them for something. It's a true partnership where the teacher's contributing 40 hours and building a relationship so that they can bring that back to the classroom.
Rob is welcome back anytime. It was great to have him.
I would also like to point out a few things that don't necessarily involve having funds. There's some great ways to give support. For instance, on those Monday meetings, I would have some people that I know on LinkedIn come in and talk to interns. And some of them in the industry for a long time. And that insight into how the industry has changed and is working can be really helpful to get students excited about what's going to happen in the future. I also had somebody come in who was an intern about like 2 years ago and just talk about what their process leaving the internship was like, and even applying to college and what their pathway now looks like. And for students who are in, their senior year of high school, that's something that's top of mind and can definitely give some support about what their next steps are going to be in life. So having that kind of support for the interns on different levels can be really, really helpful. I also think that sharing the LinkedIn for these people so that they can connect later on is invaluable. Just having a one-time connection doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to feel connected to that person for a long term, but being able to say like, hey, thank you for coming by and stopping to talk to, us interns. I really appreciate what you said, and making that a lasting connection can mean a lot to someone. I also know that something that's really important for me, and I try to always make it important for everyone else who is a mentor on my team, is to have empathy for the interns. If something is going on in their life, or if they need a little extra time for something, make sure to treat them as a human being. If you were in that situation, how would you like to be treated? And make sure that they feel like the internship program is something that they would recommend to somebody else. That's the best way to make sure that you're going to continue to have interns coming back to your company, because word of mouth is the best way to get, people to come back. So that's something that I always really strive for, is to make sure that people always feel welcome, heard, and appreciated.
Awesome. Well, I would like to thank you, Tracy, Rosalind, and Chelsea, for joining us today and sharing with us the success that you've had with your apprenticeship program. Hopefully those people watching the webinar will also be able to replicate this in their areas across the United States and to be able to have similar successes. At this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Laura.
Great. Thank you so much, Rochelle, for your moderation. And thank you again to Rosalind, to Chelsea, and to Tracy for sharing such great information about the relationship that your company has been able to form with Vancouver Public Schools. Some great tips and tricks as a former work-based learning coordinator myself. Great ideas. I loved that dinner idea that Tracy was sharing that they do, where that then rolls right into mock interviews. The idea, really highlighting that skills taught need to be relevant to the industry, not just those AP courses or those things that we might typically think of as meaningful in high school. We have to think through that business lens. So thank you so much. And I wanted to also call back to what Rosalind was just talking about sharing LinkedIn. So our panelists have very graciously shared some of their contact information, and I'm going to leave this up for a second in case anybody wants to take a quick screen grab. I know that all of our participants today would be happy to share their experience and knowledge with you if you want to connect with them over LinkedIn. And then if you do have any ACT specific inquiries, you're welcome to contact me as well. And you can find my email there at the bottom of the screen. And we hope that you'll stay in touch with ACT as well. So you can follow us on our different social media platforms. You can see them, our handles there on the right-hand side of the screen. So on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, we're at ACTE Career Tech. We're at ACTE Career Tech 1 on Instagram and ACTE on LinkedIn. And there again are our upcoming webinars this month in June. We hope that you might be able to come back and join us again for one of those. And we do require registration for these webinars. So go ahead and check out that link to find the registration information for all three. And that'll do it for us today. Thank you all for joining. We hope that today's conversation helps give you some more resources for your toolkit as you consider your next school year. We hope that everyone has a really safe and successful summer, and we will see you all again soon. Thanks so much, everyone.